It's been said that there is no such thing as unskilled labor. There really is no such thing. Every job requires some level of skill, ability, some degree of training to achieve it. Tim Russert, late Tim Russert, news reporter, personality, author, in his book, Big Russ and Me, shared that observation. His father was a sanitation engineer and started out as that, eventually driving his own route and eventually supervising others who drove the routes in Buffalo. Now, for several summers, Tim worked as a sanitation engineer. And he said even then it requires skill. In the old days, those big trash cans, you took trash out, but you don't know what's in there. You got to hold the handle at a certain angle, just in case that rat comes out, boom, it's going to hit that. You know, versus, almost like a Kurt Carson, got it, versus it coming at you. And apparently he had to use that skill more than once. He talked about the work in preparation, what he learned on that job, and actually many years later, or several years later, working for Senator Moynihan. And he said, I just kind of felt overwhelmed because there were these guys there and some women who had gone to these Ivy League schools. And senators said, look, you learned a lot as a sanitation engineer, and you learned things that these guys and gals will never know. So yes, I want you on my staff. You bring something to the table. Disney World and Disneyland are famous for the training they give their staff. You are a cast member. Weeks goes into preparation before you're put out there. And yes, even if you're picking up the trash, you are part of the cast. And there's a way that you conduct yourself and present yourself. There's no such thing as unskilled labor. A reminder that work is a value activity. We're going to be looking at work today. It's Labor Day Sunday. Work as a value activity, work as a calling, work as a place for ministry, a platform for ministry, and work as a place for legacy. Work is a value activity. Work is not the result of the fall. Some of you, if you heard the stories in Sunday school, maybe just the way it's presented, it came across that way. Oh, because of Adam and Eve, I've got to sweat it out. But actually, for this theological reference, if you go back to Genesis 2:15, God placed Adam in the garden, actually before Eve, and He called him to cultivate it and to keep it. He gives him a purpose, a work to do. Adam had a job even before he had a wife. Okay? Now we do have the fall. And the curse is work's going to be hard. Your return on investment is going to go down. You know, before it might be picking the flowers and you're singing like a Disney song. And now you're going to be sweating. It's going to be bad. It's going to be hard. That is the curse of the difficulty of it. And some of y'all have had some cursed days at work. I know. Don't have to raise your hands on that one. But work itself is good. It was established by God to give Adam a purpose, a direction. And work is good because it provides for the family. It provides for the community and the service that you give. It can be a means to fulfill a purpose, and it can be a means for joy. And work is a calling to be pursued with excellence. Skill and excellence. Earlier I talked about the sanitation engineers, and I think it's still the same way. There's some training that they get in the city of Dallas. And some years ago, a Dallas pastor lamented that, if you want to become a sanitation engineer in the city of Dallas, these are all the steps you have to take. But if you want to get married, you just go to the courthouse, you get a license, and boom. He talks about the hard work and preparation that went into marriage and all of that, but saying, look, it's important. When I think about the need to bring excellence and skill and all that you are to the job, I go back to a sermon story that I heard, 10 or 11, Reverend Kennedy in Hickory. I don't know what the sermon was about, but he told a story that has stuck with me for many years. Now the story began, maybe this is why it stuck with me. He talked about this young woman who had to leave and find her way and stumbled upon a cottage inhabited by 7 dwarfs. And I'm a little kid going, okay, this is Snow White. You just doesn't have to say some woman. We all know exactly who you're talking about. But there was a twist to the story, and this one is just that she keeps house for them. And it works very well. And then one day, she was a little tired, sat down, and next thing you know, she's taking a short nap. And could hear them coming home. And there were certain things that were always done before they came home, so it was basically all finished. Well, there was one little more task to do. There was some dust. She just swept it under the rug, put the rug on top. Everything looked like it was fine. Well, they had their supper, they go to bed, and as she's trying to sleep, all she could think was dust under the rug. Dust under the rug. And so she gets up, they're all asleep, quietly goes down there, pulls back the rug, and she's going to get that dust swept up and thrown out like she normally would. And when she does, she finds a bag full of gold from the dwarfs. With a note, they knew what had happened. It said, had you not done this, only pennies you would have earned, but you have done your job and done it well, and this gold is yours. Now again, I do not know what that sermon was about. That's just the story that has stuck with me. But I tell you, more than once, I wanted to cut corners on what I was doing. And through the back of my mind, I could hear Reverend Kennedy say, dust under the rug, dust under the rug. And I go ahead and do it right as I should be doing it. Work well requires skill and excellence, and work as a platform for ministry. For some of us, what you're doing, where you are, that venue in which you find your place, ministry all over the place. And others, it's a vehicle to help you serve. It's more elsewhere that you feel like you're doing more of the impact. Sometimes it's the workplace, and sometimes it's a combination. Looking at some of our examples in Scripture, we have Nehemiah, who is a government official. He's a cupbearer. He knows how the world works. And then he's called back to lead a building project, rebuilding the walls, and he knows what bases to cover with all the people, all the officials in their area. Esther could be seen as a victim. Here she is, a young girl, and in the harem, she has no parents. Her cousin is her guardian. But then she is strategically placed, and she can use her influence to save her people. Ruth goes with her mother-in-law. The mother-in-law returns to Bethlehem. Ruth had never been there before. But Ruth goes to work and wins the admiration of the community with her work ethic and wins the heart of Boaz. Lydia is a dealer in purple goods, a luxury item. And there's a group that gathers. She gathers a group for worship, and Paul finds them there, and later she hosts the church in Philippi. She would have had the means to do so, but as far as we know, she's still dealing in the purple goods. Peter was a fisherman, and that's a case of transferring his skill set to full-time ministry. But he had years as a fisherman, and God used that. Isaiah is a court official. He works as a government worker. His work as a prophet is a side hustle, you might say. Now, he is a cousin to the king. He is an aristocrat. So he can kind of come into the king's presence. It's like, I've got the credentials. Guards, you know who I am. Go have a nice day. King, this is what you need to hear. Cousin, okay? Placed there, but really his 9 to 5 was working in the administration. Moses had the 40 years in the court of the Pharaoh and 40 years of tending sheep. In both places, developed his skills to lead the people. Paul was trained as a tent maker, and there are many years, and that's what he did. Preaching and teaching, and sometimes doing that full time, and sometimes tent making. Literally making the tents. We have that expression now, but he literally was making tents. And of course, we cannot forget Jesus the carpenter. So I wondered why was it at 30 he went out to do his work? But the theory is this. He had brothers and sisters, but Joseph died when they were young. And so he is the breadwinner. He's the one paying the bills and having to buy the resources, pricing the merchandise, being able to sell it. And then when 1 or 2 brothers were of age that they could take over, then he could turn it over to them and do the work that he did. But for many years, he's out there doing his work as the carpenter. Work is a platform for ministry, and work as a place to leave a legacy. Now, for some people, and they'll say to the conversations, they like what they do it well, but really, they'll say, that gives me the resources so I can do something over here. And it could be volunteering with the Scouts or church or some other place. I'm being very honest with me. They like what they do, but they see it as the platform to fund, or it helps to support things. For some, what they're doing, they can see a direct correlation 1-to-1. It works in different ways, and it helps leave a legacy. I've mentioned before Jack Keith, who was professor of pastoral care at Columbia Seminary, and shared about his father and his father-in-law. Now, he said his father-in-law was a truck driver, and he worked hard, and he did it well, and provided for the family, and launched the kids. And when he got to an age, he retired. And he and his wife wanted to travel. The way it was kind of fun, it's like I'm driving, but it's on my schedule. And I say where I want to go, when I want to go. It's kind of fun, just kind of driving. He got on, for him it was another stage of life. But Jack said, for his father, his work was his mission. His father ran a grocery store. A small local grocery store in a little community between 2 larger towns. And he said, there are widows that depend on me. They can come here and they don't have to drive as far to the larger towns to get items. I can even open it up for them if they need to. It was his purpose and his life running that grocery store. When I think of work and legacy, I cannot help but think of one of my grandpa Dowden's first cousins, Bernice. And she was a character. As a young woman, she wanted to be a nurse. The family was not too keen on that because training to be a nurse, you might see men in not the most genteel settings. Let's get our smelling salts and our fans, okay? Well, she did it anyway. As my daddy said, it's amazing how many family members that later in life she cares for.